Cool, man. Well, we'll get right into it.
Okay.
And I wanted to welcome Ben Hagon on with For Good Intent. So, yeah, why don't we start off like a little bit about kind of your background? And,
Sure. Yeah.
I know you're originally from Ontario, and you kind of made the venture over east
That's
here.
right.
And,
Well, originally I'm from England,
oh,
right? So I'm English. I moved here in 2001
okay.
with my Canadian wife, and so that's how long ago was that? That'll be 23 years this September.
Wow.
So we moved here from London. I did my degree in London. Grew up in England and met my wife in London. Did my degree, and then we moved to Toronto in
What'd you
2001.
study?
Graphic design.
Nice.
So we moved to Toronto, and I started my career and moved around a bit in Ontario, and we ended up having 4 kids.
Full house.
Full house, and 2005 we moved to Kitchener-Waterloo, and we lived there for about 10 years, and back to Toronto, and then we moved to Nova Scotia in 2021. My wife's family are all from Nova Scotia, and
Okay.
we have a cottage on PEI. We've had that for a while. So
Yeah, I seen you post. You ran
yeah,
it too, right?
yeah, we ran it out privately. Yeah,
Nice.
and we just fell in love with the Maritimes, and my wife spent her summers here as a child on Cape Breton Island with her grandparents.
Yeah,
so,
everybody from Cape Breton loves Cape Breton.
So-
They can't wait to go back.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. So when the pandemic hit, we spent our summers at our cottage because you had to do the 2 weeks quarantine. You weren't allowed to
Right.
leave.
Yeah,
in
yeah.
PI, you weren't even allowed to go for a walk. You had to stay on your property.
Yeah, they were hard on.
They were hard. So
Yeah.
we stayed there for 2 weeks, and then we had 6 to 8 weeks, the 2 summers. And after the first summer, we said we just loved it, and we loved the feeling, and we said why don't we roll the dice and give it a try and move out east. And it's been great. 2 older kids are at university, and the 2 younger kids are doing really well at school here.
Awesome. That's
Very
good
well,
to
actually.
hear,
Very,
yeah.
very well. Yeah.
It's always good to hear people doing good.
Yeah, it's been great.
So graphic design, like tell
Yeah.
me a little bit about that. Like what kind of like pulled you in? Like was that always the dream? Did you do anything else before that? Or is that what kind of you just knew that was kind of the passion you had?
No, I didn't really know anything about graphic design. So I was an artist. That was my focus in school.
What kind of art?
Just painting,
Painting?
like fine art stuff.
Oh wow.
But when looking back, what I know now about communications, my 3 interests, which were art, language, and people, that's essentially what I do now. So those are my interests. So the English system's quite different to the Canadian system. So we do high school, and we finish at 16 actually in England.
Really?
Yeah, and then we do another 2 years of what we call college, and you can go vocational or academic. And I went academic, and actually you pick 3 subjects, and I picked psychology, art, and English. So those are the 3 things that I do every day now, funnily enough. But I still didn't know what graphic design was. So then you have to do another year of art fundamentals, and in that you try fine art, ceramics, fashion if you're interested to, and visual communications. And sure enough, I gravitated toward visual communications because that's what I'm interested in, and that led me to a graphic design degree. But up to that point, I didn't know about graphic design at all.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned, not funny, but my dad or father, we did lobster fishing. That was our thing. I would have been a 3rd or 4th generation. But like my grandfather and my father, they both had trades.
Yeah.
And like it was set up in that sense when dad was young. You could go from high school at 16 to the Vogue.
Yeah.
And a lot of people did that. And that
Yeah.
I find like we should have that program in there now because we need tradespeople
We need tradespeople.
real bad.
Yeah, we
But-
do. We do.
But I don't know, like, I guess there's a few years that separate us, not that many. But when I was growing up with tradespeople, entrepreneurs, like, they didn't consider themselves entrepreneurs as, lobster fishermen or operators for a fishing company. But when I grew up, and I probably said this a few times because I find these, like, themes of conversation come up. But for you haven't heard it. Like, I got sold a dream by Gramp and Dad. You need to go to university. You need to get a college or university degree.
Yep.
You need to get a job with a salary and a pension and benefits because the work they were doing, well, in their eyes, there wasn't enough to get you through in the trades because it's very seasonal back where a very rural area. So you don't got a lot of like big commercial jobs that you can work inside and all that. So I kind of got, I use the word brainwash, but like when you're young, I don't know if you call it brainwashing, but you're like, oh, well, Dad and Grant must know, like, they've lived longer than me. So I kind of just went, well, I guess that's what I need to do. So that's what I did. And like the trades and like lobster fishing, it was like always like, no, you're better than that. Like it was like almost like there's better stuff out there. But then in hindsight, looking back, it's like, man, I got a lot of friends. Mind you, I don't know if sticking around where I was brought up was for me, but like I got a lot of buddies that are doing real well.
Yeah.
Whether they got in the trades or they got into the fishing industry and, you know, shoulda, coulda, woulda. And I don't regret where I'm at, but you kind of look, it's like, you guys weren't 100% right there.
So I have a theory on this.
Yeah.
So we always think the other thing is better.
The grass is greener.
The grass is always greener, right? So you, not in England. England, the grass is greener, don't get me wrong, but we never had these conversations growing up.
We didn't.
I was the first and the last Hagan to go to university.
Is that right?
Didn't happen before, and it hasn't happened since. Hopefully that will change with my niece and nephew over there, but it wasn't part of our family culture.
You wouldn't imagine I was the first one to go to university out of my family.
There you go, right? So I think that there's this, and I saw it with my wife's father too, where he, for the years with his children, really pushed this because he was a factory worker, a unionized factory worker in Ontario from Cape Breton, did some carpentry work, but ended up getting a union job because he had children to provide for. And he pushed his children for this reason, thinking that was the way to be, because that union job dream is over. That doesn't really exist in the same way that it did for him, right? So you can't go now with a high school education and get a unionized job where you can make 80, 90,000 before overtime with benefits coming out of the yin-yang, pensions. Like they're going to live until they die on their pension and they'll be comfortable. And his wife was the same. She worked in the auto plant. So that he recognized that life doesn't exist anymore. That's gone. We got rid of that, rightly or wrongly, probably wrongly. So he pushed his children. But now we're always catching up, you know? So now we're realizing, holy, like we have a massive problem with trades. We have a problem in healthcare. We have all of a problem with these practical application positions. So now we're saying, oh, holy moly, you know, maybe I shouldn't have done a Bachelor of Commerce. Maybe I shouldn't have done a marketing degree. Maybe I shouldn't have done these things. I could have made a lot of money. And there are those stories. I have an old client of mine. He used to work for a massive construction company. He had 3 kids. And the smartest, most academic one, he couldn't figure it out. So he got him on as an apprentice carpenter. Fast forward 10 years, the guy's making $200,000 a year, living a dream out west, having a great time, while his other children who have university degrees don't have quite the same lifestyle. So I think it's tricky. What I've seen, because I have 2 children in university right now, so my 2 oldest kids went through the Ontario school system their whole lives. At that time, the bias from the school system, not from home, from the school system, was pushed to university.
Oh, big time.
So we always said to our kids, you have to do something. You can't finish at grade 12. That can be whatever you want. It can be trade school, it can be college, it can be university, it can be whatever you want. That's what they heard at home. But at school, university. And my theory on it is that they track the data. And university is up here, and the school system, it's a good school if you get a lot of kids in university. It's a lower class, lower caliber school if the kids all go into the trades.
Yeah, and that's how
and that has to change. And it is slowly changing. Academia is a very slow moving show. Think of it like the Titanic. It takes a long, industry moves much faster than academia. So I think it is starting to change because it has to. The school system has to respond to these issues we face as a society. And I'll tell you, coming from Ontario, it's a lot better here. There's a lot more tradespeople here. Ontario, they have to fly them in from other countries. What? There aren't Canadian tradespeople that we ever saw. Like maybe your odd guy in the neighborhood, but you bring a crew in, and most of them aren't Canadian.
So even with all that additional population, there just isn't that stock of laborers.
Or maybe those guys get hired by the big guys.
Right.
You get hired on an Acon or Ellis Dawn or one of these big guys, and you get good job as opposed to sweating it out in home renos.
Yeah.
It's a different context. So here is a bit better. Like all the tradespeople we've had in the house have been Nova Scotian for the most part, including the big reno we did. They were all Nova Scotians. But there's certainly, I think we just have to open our minds, and that's something I've been really thinking about a lot, is the system needs to open their minds and like put all that ego shit aside. Like, let's stop hierarchying everything.
Yeah.
Let's look at what we need. Let's look at what people are good at, and let's go for that. Because this, like, you have to have a degree. It just doesn't work anymore. Though I will say, as a business owner, I like people who come in with degrees. There is a difference.
Well, I think it shows like a certain level, like, and I kind of, I don't know. I guess it depends on your journey. I was just thinking a little bit there. So, like, I have a buddy. He started a real estate photography business, Noah. He started helping me with this podcast when he wasn't as busy. I got him his first listing gig. Guy was going to do a BCom in commerce. And anyway, we sit down for coffees every now and then, little updates, and he still does like my listing stuff when he's available. He's like, yeah, man. He's like, geez, like, I gotta tell you, I've been having like a hard time keeping up with work and school. And I was like, yeah. I was like, well, I mean, I'm not telling you what to do, but you ever thought maybe just don't do the school, do your business? He's like, yeah, well, it's like, I think it'd still be good to have. And I was like, absolutely, definitely be good to have. And if anything, I guess, from a hiring perspective, because I was a district guy for Unilever Canada, so I did some hiring as well. And I think one thing above all else, even if you don't see the value, or you do university and you don't get into whatever you did and you do something else, at least it shows the mindset that you can start something and see it through to fruition. For 4 years.
That's a commitment.
Right? So if anything, it shows like dedication and like discipline to, maybe you didn't want to do it. Maybe you hated it. But at least if you got it done, and I'm not saying you should do a university degree you hate. No. But it does show that like perseverance to get through something, right to the end. So I'd have to agree. There's some value there. And I wouldn't trade like the life experience, coming back from a rural community, like, a few thousand people, coming to Halifax was a big deal.
Yeah.
Like, it was, like, the big city.
Yeah,
they call like, my boss anyway, used to call Toronto, like when we had to go to head office meetings, like the big smoke.
Yeah. Yeah.
But to me, this was the big smoke.
Right. Yeah.
I remember coming to, we'd pile into the car, be like, we're going to Halifax, and you drive downtown, and you just be like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Because like downtown Yarmouth is it's nothing. So,
I grew up in the country, by the way. Like I had sheep and cows outside my bedroom window. So awesome. Like there was a town probably half the size of Halifax within a 15-minute drive, but I grew up pretty rural too.
Yeah. Whereabouts?
It's an hour east of London, though it's 17 worlds away from London.
17
easily.
Like it, eh?
I didn't go to London until I was like 17, and I lived an hour from one of the greatest
Really?
cities. Yeah, we just
There's
didn't
just
go.
enough that
we just didn't go. People just didn't go. It was like that was the big smoke, right? Like why would you go there?
Yeah.
But as a young sort of artistic, academic, curious person, I loved it. Like I absolutely loved it. I went for a school trip, and within 6 months, I was living there.
Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just took
I didn't want to
trip.
go anywhere else for university. It was just London.
Just London.
I was just completely intoxicated by it as a 18, 19-year-old.
And what was the university in London?
It was called the London College of Printing at the time. Now it's called the London College of Communication.
Okay.
Yeah,
cool,
part of the University of Arts London. But I think that with university, again, we're playing catch up a bit. It wasn't that long ago that if you 20, 30 years ago, if you graduated with a bachelor's degree, you could walk right into a decent job.
Oh, now it's just standard.
Now, the point of university is not employment. The point of university is personal growth, learning, connections, all of those things. And a lot of people go back to school after they've done their degree, right? To get a college year program, to get trained or something
MBA
like that.
MBA
or even something practical, right? Some, like my son's into film, so when he's done his 4-year program at Concordia, he'll probably have to go to a year or two specialized program to get a job in film. So I think we just have to change our mindset about it. If you want to do university, you should do something you're interested in. You should do something you find stimulating around people like you.
It's tough to figure that out when you're just in your 20s, though, eh?
Well,
I'd be 17. A better student
My son
now.
was 17 when he started university.
Yeah. I often say, like, looking back, like, I mean, I got a little bit, I don't know what it is, like the doctor, I've kind of went and tried to get it checked out. I think I got like a little touch of ADHD, like even in jiu-jitsu, like I'm watching the drill, but I'm thinking about something else. And I totally lost my train of thought.
There you go. There it is, kicking in right there.
See, that's the
about
brain.
Being a better student now.
Yeah. Oh, right. So I often think back, it's like even the stuff that I thought wasn't as interesting, like economics. Like, I think I could really get into that now because I'm always into the market stats for real estate.
Yeah.
I was into the numbers and everything in spreadsheets for Unilever back in my past life. And I really, like, once you get in to a role where you have to, like, run a business and look at things from a business sense, like, when you're just looking at it from a theory perspective, I find it's, like, it's not quite the same.
100%, because it's too abstract until you
Yeah.
apply it. And then when you apply it, you're like, okay, well, now I understand it, and I can look at the theory with an understanding of the practical application.
Exactly what I was going to say. So now I have that practical experience that I can apply. Now it makes some of that stuff that I was like, well, what the hell am I learning this for? Like, I'd be more interested because I have, like, life experience.
Yeah.
So, like, and another thing that was like maybe don't do that back when we were young was like taking a year or two off.
Oh, you should do that.
I think.
I agree 100%
think
with doing
so.
that. A lot of people in England do it. There's actually a formal program called a gap year.
Yeah.
So you take a year to travel, and then because they're so young when you go to university, that gives you an extra year, and you come back with a year of time, but probably 5 years of maturity, and then you go to university.
Yeah, because I've seen, like, time and time again, like, somebody that just, like, well, we got to go to university, so they pick, say it's they don't Bachelor of Commerce. Well, and next thing, well, commerce isn't for them, and then maybe they go into arts, and then they're like, well, what am I going to do in the arts? Well, don't know, and then they're bouncing here and next thing they got $80,000 to $100,000 in school debt,
Right.
and nothing but a few course credits to show for it. And sometimes even I've seen people just, like, quit altogether and go back home, and they still got that debt.
Right.
And they're just doing maybe they do get into a trade or, in the fishing industry where I grew up, but they're so already, like, behind, like, in the financial sense.
What we tell our kids is there's no rush, right? So
there's always an urgency.
There's an urgency, and I think, and I'm not much of a conspiracy theorist or any of that, but I think there is an economic element to it, and as a society, we push kids through to get them to participate in post-secondary because there's financial elements to that, and then to get them into the workforce because we have a massive labor shortage in this country, which I get that. But for an individual, the value of taking your time and growing up a little bit before you make these, they're asking 15-year-olds to pick what they're going to do for a job.
It's insane.
It just doesn't make any sense.
It's insane.
It doesn't make any sense. So I always tell my kids, do what you're interested in, and the work stuff will figure itself out when it's supposed to. So, for example, my daughter, she's finishing at St. Mary's in April. She'll graduate from her 4-year degree. And we've told her that we will continue to support her for another year in terms of her rent so that she can do what she wants. Just take a year. Don't go right from elementary school, junior high, high school, university, job.
It's a lot when you kind of look at it.
And then you retire and then you die. Like, come on, let's just take a breath here. And we've told her, just take that year. It's not a lot of money for us. It's a few $100 a month for her rent.
Right.
And take a year and just enjoy yourself. How about you enjoy yourself? So she's going to move to Newfoundland with her partner. Her partner's there doing a master's degree. She's going to move to Newfoundland in the summer. And she's like, I'll go for the summer. So
St. John's?
It'd
be a lot of fun this summer.
It's
Tell
like,
you what, I used to go there all the time for work.
Yeah.
Best kind of people.
I know. It's great, right? Like, why wouldn't
downtown
she?
St. John's? Oh, man. It's like mini Halifax.
Yeah.
All in, like, this one little cluster.
So we've told her, go. You don't have to come back. Like, obviously, we're going to miss you. But enjoy yourself. You're only going to be 22 for one time in your entire life.
Yeah. I tell you what, your 20s pass by pretty freaking
like
quick.
that, right? Like that.
And I'm already 35. This looks like just the other day I got that bachelor's degree, right?
Yeah. So enjoy yourself. There's this tremendous rush to figure everything out when, to be honest with you, most 22-year-olds can't even figure out how to dress themselves properly.
Yeah, it's a challenge.
Like, and I don't mean to sound like a boomer or anything like that,
Nah.
but there's such a rush. There's such a sense of urgency to get people on a path that you're too young to figure out. So for me, and I know you switched careers, right? Mm-hmm. For me, it's like everyone just needs to chill out a little bit. I think
there's not enough chill
in modern society. This is what has changed my life, is that I've started chilling out a bit. It's made all the difference. And it's not, I'm a very ambitious guy and I work very hard, but I'm still chill about it, right?
You're a pretty chill guy.
Yeah, but I work really friggin' hard, but it's like, like, what's the point in being super intense about it and worrying and stressing? It's like,
I find that's a big problem for me, is like the worrying of getting to where I want.
It's completely unproductive.
It is.
My wife told me years ago, you got to stop worrying about the work and start putting that energy into the work. The day that you, I have read that book many times. The day that you stop worrying about the work and you take all that energy that you're expending in worry and apply it to doing the work is the day that you become successful and you get happier.
You want a high-level synopsis for anybody that needs a little help there. The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday basically talks exactly about that.
Or any of his books, really. They're phenomenal. They're phenomenal.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, absolutely. No, you didn't at all. And so for me, there's this tremendous sense of anxiety and stress and worry amongst the young generation, and it really saddens me because before I had kids, I didn't have a care in the world. I was having a great time, right? And yeah, school was a little bit stressful, but not really, like just because I had to do all the work. These kids worry about all these things that they can't control, and it's overwhelming for them. And for me, it's a real shame because they're missing out, because you're only, like I just said, you're only in your 20s once. One day you'll turn around and you're going to be 45 next month, like me, and that's gone. And so it's my concern is that we're raising a generation of stressed, worried individuals, and I think all of this is part of it. It's like, do what you like. You've got lots of time in your life. You've got a long life. No one's retiring at 60 anymore. No. Right? You got a long life ahead of you. Hopefully, we should be so lucky. Lots of time to figure it out. Stop stressing. Enjoy yourself. Do the things that stimulate you. Do the things that make you grow as a person. Be around the people that you enjoy, and cut out everything else, because it's unproductive and it's unhelpful and it will make you sad.
Yeah.
And that for me is everything. And that's why I try and tell my children. But the problem is, you're only one voice. And like we said to our kids, always said to them, trade school, college, university. They get out there in the school system, and all the guidance counselors are like, university or bust.
Right.
So what do?
They go to university.
So you only have so much control as a parent. I guess what I'm trying to say. But these are the messages that we talked about with our kids, is like, be a good person, try and enjoy yourself, find the things that you enjoy. Don't worry too much about grades. Make sure you pass, do your best, you'll be fine.
Yeah. I can even attest to, like, there was definitely a bit of pressure at home for, like, performance. Like, well, if I come home with a B, well, it could have been an A. Well, why did you get a bad grade here? It was like, well, I don't really care about that class. I'd rather play hockey. Like, I was a big hockey guy.
Yeah.
And, like, I don't know, like, yeah, like, I was very much, like, getting fed all this info, too. But, like, you kind of have to have fun. In high school, I only ever remember, like, it's a blur now. Like, all I remember in high school was, like, playing hockey. And it didn't bode well because, like, I wasn't ready for university. I had to learn how to restudy everything. So, and I get it, like, and maybe that's the problem too. Maybe we're not equipping kids well enough to get in the system. At least, I don't know, maybe I was just a terrible student and people were better prepared than me, but I had to learn how to study and do it,
I wasn't a good student either.
Yeah.
No, not till I got a bit older. But you mentioned your ADHD. I have various conditions that I deal with, and I didn't
undiagnosed,
know.
but
I'm diagnosed, but I didn't know, right? So I didn't know why I was bouncing off the walls and why, some nights I couldn't sleep well and I ground my teeth and all those types of things.
I do have a bite plate too.
Yeah, right. So I don't do that stuff anymore. I use plant medicine to help me chill out. But
hey, there you go.
But it's for me, like looking back at school. If you want to go there, what stands out to me is the teachers that showed kindness and compassion and an interest in me as a person. All that academic stuff is like, it's all kind of a byproduct, At the end of the day, what's important in life is about how you treat other people.
Experience.
It's about being compassionate. It's about showing empathy for others and creating relationships with one another. And your business is all about relationships.
Yeah,
well, I would argue all business is about relationships.
Mostly, yes.
So, hitting the books, you got to do that. You got to get a certain level. But like I always have said to my kids is, no one's ever asked to see my grades. Ever, right?
I've never had to.
I don't even know what my degree is.
Right?
Right? Like it's not. You have to pass, right? You have to do your best, but no one's ever going to ask you what your GPA is. Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Unless you're like going into it. But even if you go into a law type situation, you're just going through the educational hurdles to get to that point. No one's going to be like, what grade did you get in your legal degree? Like, it's not a thing. So there's all this stress that people put on the kids. And for me, it's about raising a society of compassionate, interested, bright people. That's what we want.
100%.
Who want to do a good job and they want to work, but all this other stuff is just noise to me.
Yeah, no, that's all good points. But so getting back to another point, so Ben's a graphic designer. Did you take a job with another company?
Yeah. So I moved to Canada right after graduation.
Just like
yeah. So my wife got pregnant is what happened.
Okay.
So I finished, I graduated, and then we moved here. That September. She moved a bit before, a couple of months before. And then, that was 9/11. So you're a bit younger than me, but that was a real problem.
Yeah, I remember where I was with that day too.
We all remember the day, but
yeah,
economically, that was a
Right.
real problem. Like, especially in Toronto, people were very worried. So a lot of places
right
were
there,
shut.
really.
You're right there in the towers, and so it was a hard time to find a job, especially coming from a different country. And my first job, but I got a job in April 2002, and they talk about beating the pavement. I literally just was on foot, walking around banging on doors,
man.
right? That's how I got my work, and meeting people, and again relationships, and went for an interview, and the guy was like, "Oh, we're not hiring, but my buddy is, and I'll introduce you." And that's how I ended up getting my work. So I worked in Toronto for 5 or 6 years. Then we moved out to Kitchener and got a job there because this will make you laugh, because we couldn't afford a house in Toronto in 2006 because they were like $385.
Wow. Now they're like $1 million.
So anyway, we moved out to Kitchener and bought a big old 4-bedroom century home for $200,000, and I worked at an agency out there for 2 or 3 years, and without sounding egotistical, I was doing a lot of the work myself and making a lot of the money. So I just thought, well, I'll give it a go. And I had a couple of freelance clients that encouraged me. BlackBerry, they were my first client.
Oh,
remember
nice.
BlackBerry?
Yeah, I used to have one.
Yeah, because that's where they're from,
the
right?
keyboard,
Oh, yeah, everybody
right?
loved the keyboard.
Couldn't go back now.
So they encouraged me to do my own thing, and that was 2009, and that's, so I worked for like 8 years, did very well, won a bunch of awards, worked at a bunch of good places, and then started my own thing, and in Kitchener I started it, and it just grew really quickly, and within a year or two we had 10 people, and I haven't really looked back.
That's amazing.
And then in 2013 we switched to focus on only non-profit organizations. So we only work with non-profits. We don't work with business anymore.
So yeah, we'll get to that. But so like, what was kind of like the defining moment where you did you see some white space that wasn't kind of being accounted for, or like how did that whole creation for Good Intent come up?
Well, so I started Hagon Designing first.
You started another business.
So 2009 was Hagon Design, and that was a design studio that worked with everybody. So we specialized in corporate law firms, engineering companies, construction companies, those types of folks, professional services, right?
Yeah.
And did very well. But after a few years of that, I wasn't really that enthralled with what we were doing. We did good. We did beautiful work, won awards. Everybody was very happy. But, some of the stuff was contradictory, and I'm a big ethical guy, and I just didn't. I had a couple of instances where I'm sitting across from a multimillionaire and he's telling me to cut my prices, and I just thought, you know what, screw you, right? Like, right. And I think I told him that because I've always been
Some people need to.
Yeah, you
get off your high horse.
Your baseline profit is like 100 times my total revenue, and you're asking me to cut my prices.
I find that's always the way. The people with the most money want to pay the least.
Well, he was under pressure, right? So he's under pressure from his board of directors to increase EBITDA, blah 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 blah. That's disrespectful. We've worked together for nearly 10 years. You can't tell me to cut my prices now. So that was kind of the start of the end. And then we did a bit of a process, and we're like, what are the clients that we really enjoy? Who are the people that we love working with? What are the organizations we believe the most in? And it was the nonprofits as a team. So
that's kind of what drew you in, kind of the more value-based relationships. Yeah,
we'd always done it. We'd always done a bit of that work in healthcare and fundraising and that type of stuff. And I came from a school of design that was very much, it wasn't about business at all. It was very different from Canada. The school of design I went to was all about social good. It was all about design for people. We called it the First Things First Manifesto. So using our talents to help with societal issues, not just selling toothbrushes, right?
Right.
Which you know all about at Unilever.
Yeah.
And so that was, I think it was in there. I think it was always in there. I think I never really let it go. And so what we did in 2013 is we launched Intent as a sister company to Hagon Design. But here's the interesting thing for anybody interested in business. The day that we launched our Intent brand and website, we stopped promoting Hagon Designing. We kept it going. We kept the website up. We kept most of the clients. but we stopped talking about it. And within 1 year, Intent had completely swallowed Hagon Design.
Really?
Because all we did was promote our nonprofit work, the services, the clients.
And that just...
And what you put out there comes back. So remember that if you're a business person, don't put negative shit out into the world because you'll get negative back.
Yeah, man. And I think that goes for your personal too. Like, you know, I have a Wednesday meeting with my mentor, Naz Climbey, every week. And sometimes I'll come in and, you know, I'll have a bunch of negative shit that I'm like, oh, I'm having problems with this and this. And like, I don't know why these people are like this and they don't want to listen to that. And he's like, it's like, you got to stop focusing on that. He's like, if they're not ready or they're stuck doing whatever, just like, you know, keep them in the pot.
Yeah.
Like, go find more.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, you can't be focusing on the negative because next thing you'll just get stuck focusing on that and then nothing else will get done. So it's just like, yeah, there's going to be negative all the time, but you got to focus on, like you say, moving forward, focus on the positives. And that comes with like, you know, meditation, journaling, all that's to
all
keep you focused on the positive.
All
present, be positive. Because like you said, people can feel that.
Yes.
They can feel it.
Yes.
And I think that was one of my biggest mistakes coming into real estate when I you know, I still don't know. I know stuff, but like, you know, pretty fresh into it. But nobody likes to get treated like a transaction, like you and your buddy, you know, hey, cut your, you know, nobody wants to cut your commission or cut your fees or whatever. And yeah, that was kind of like a big realization. Like, hey, man, you got a lot of good stuff going on.
Yeah.
So focus on the good stuff.
Yep.
And more good stuff will come.
Yep.
But if you're a nervous wreck or stressed out and it's like, oh, well, you know, this deal isn't going good and this person and that person messed this up or this person didn't handle themselves accordingly, it just snowballs out of effect. And next thing, you're not really you're just spinning your wheels, you know?
Yeah. The old business trope is that 5% of your clients cause you 80% of the problems.
Yeah.
Right.
It's kind of almost like that 80-20 rule in terms of like 20% of the players do 80% of the business.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have to be really aware of that, right?
Yeah.
Because if it's 5 or 10% of people giving you problems, well, you can't devote 80% of your energy to those people.
Yeah, you got to focus on the
other
other 95%.
You got to give 10% of your energy and thinking to those people because that's what they're giving you back. I'm going to tell you an anecdote that happened to me yesterday.
Okay.
And it's one of the most beautiful things that's ever happened to me in business.
Ever.
It almost brought me to tears, and it brought the account manager working on the client to tears.
Okay.
So we have a long-standing client in Toronto, and this lady's predecessor, who unfortunately passed away from cancer, was, let's just say, she was kind of chaotic, and she was especially chaotic with money. So what she would do is she would basically give us money at a certain point in the year for services to be fulfilled throughout the year. But because she was chaotic, she would vanish. So we were never really able to fulfill the complete scope of work that she would pay us for.
Because she disappeared.
Because she'd sometimes disappear for a year and a half. She'd like resurface at that time of year and say, can you send me a bunch of invoices? Sounds good, right? Because it means we get money for things we're not working on. I mean, it sounds like free money, but as a business owner, it's incredibly stressful.
Yeah,
especially,
you don't know how to deliver, eh?
Well, you're not a bank. You can't just hold people's money for them.
Yeah.
Right? So it was very, very, very stressful. Very stressful. So unfortunately, the lady, wonderful lady, she passed away, and her replacement comes in. And it turns out we weren't the only firm that she was doing this with. So this lady walks into a mess of accounting paperwork. So what we've worked out is basically we owe that client $100,000 in services, which is a lot of money for a small business. So I've said, you know what? We're going to set you up a ledger and we'll just deduct from it as we go. So I get an email from her yesterday and she says, I want to talk to you about something. My conscience is really bothering me. That's not like the email you usually get from a client.
Right.
So I said, okay, well, give me a call whatever. I've got a meeting this time. Just give me a call. So she rings immediately. And she tells me that she is very uncomfortable with this arrangement and that it's not our fault that the company was chaotic and they didn't have their stuff in order and we shouldn't be penalized for that. And the system that we've set up where we've got a total that, by the way, we don't have anymore, like that's been gone for years,
right,
is not fair to us. And she wants to pay. She does want to draw from it, but feel like 50-50. She also wants to pay us. So if it's a $10,000 project,
She's going to do $5.
she's going to give us $5,000. That, her doing that means that me and my team will run through walls for that woman. Doesn't matter what she wants, doesn't matter when she wants it, she's going to get it. That is what it's all about. Treating people properly, thinking about their situation, and taking care of them if you're able to as best as you can. That's how you build relationships in business.
Yeah, man, it's give and take.
Give and take. But most people don't feel that way. Most people are like, I'm paying you a lot of money and you have to give me the stuff.
Yeah.
And there's a truth to that.
Yeah.
There's a truth to that. But it's not a transaction. It's a relationship. And so I try and do it with my vendors, try and do it with my partners, treat people fairly, treat them equitably, make sure that they're okay. And it works. And when a client does it for us, that creates loyalty you won't believe. But the caveat there, the reason that she did that is because the other vendors told her to get lost. The other vendors said, your contract's expired, lady. That money's gone. We can't help you. And my company said, you paid us. We have ethics. We have integrity. We owe you that. We will give it to you back. And now we both win. And those other vendors lose.
Yeah.
And that's all about integrity. And that, to me, business is about numbers, people, and integrity.
Yeah, I think that's a great business lesson. And if people kind of held that more kind of in front of them, I think we'd be in a better place for sure.
We have to make money, right?
Everybody does.
Business is about money,
Yeah.
right? Business is about money. It's not necessarily about profit, but it's about money. It's about employing people, paying them, getting paid, yada, yada, yada. It is just about numbers. But it's not. It's about relationships. It's about people. It's about treating people right. It's about getting treated right. And that's where the magic happens. And you must see it in your work. You must get great clients that appreciate you and you appreciate them.
Oh, man.
And then the opposite. You must see a huge range.
Yeah, there's a huge range. I mean, it's kind of like a mixed bag. Like, some referrals come in and they're, from a good friend or a good person. And most times you can assume that they hold similar people in their stable. But then there's other people that come out. I mean, if I didn't have bad deals when I started, I wouldn't have had any.
Right.
So I got a lot of crappy stuff out of the way real quick. And you can see, like, who values what.
Yeah.
And a lot of people in the real estate gig, they just want that money. They want the bag.
Yeah.
Not everybody.
No.
But, yeah, I mean, I'd like to think that there's a lot more good people out there than bad. But, yeah, you just never really know. And then you don't really fully understand sometimes. People only tell you so much. So like maybe there's something going on. Maybe there's a reason. Sometimes you don't get to the bottom of that. But, yeah, man, I mean, if you don't have a relationship in this game, and I mean any game, I don't know how well you're doing. Like if you can't genuinely care about people and not just be like, oh, well, Ben wants to sell his house. Well, he's worth this amount of money to me.
Right.
And that's it.
Yeah, that's right. That's the ticket. He's this ticket.
Yeah, because I want all my clients to want to come to my Christmas parties and my, I'm doing an Easter egg hunt for the kids that I'm hosting. I haven't really announced it yet, but I guess it'll come up in here. Saturday before Easter, I'm gonna hide 350 Easter eggs with candy in them, and I got they're right there. There's 6 golden eggs. I'm gonna give those for the prizes for the golden egg finders, and then we're gonna do a basket raffle. We're gonna have a backdrop, pictures for the kids, everybody that wants that, all free. And I want to build a community of people that are good people and have fun with them, and so that when they think of me, Chris the Realtor, it's not just the guy that sells houses, but he's community driven.
Yeah,
he always has cool events for us. He always thinks to invite us to these events, and I feel like that if you get kind of that sphere, that's kind of a lot of value added there for your people. And I like to see people come and enjoy what I'm putting on too. So it's that's some give and take too. So I'm giving, they're taking, but I like to cook. And one of my guilty pleasures too is I like to host too when I can. And I almost like to watch people eat to see if they enjoy it. And I'll eat last. And I don't know. It's just nice to see people enjoy.
Oh, there's
themselves.
Nothing like nourishing other people.
Yeah.
There's nothing. It's a human nature. We've lost a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, and I grew up my nan. She'd be hovering around the kitchen.
My nan too.
Right? It's that generation.
My nan worked in the school kitchen too.
Right?
So I get her lunch and dinner.
There you go. And like I
Or
think
dinner and supper, right? Lunch and supper. I got
right.
out here. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we used to say different things too.
Yeah.
French people say different stuff. Mom's French, Acadian, or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
We were dinner and tea. That's what we called it. Lunch was dinner and supper was tea.
Yeah. What
Yeah.
time was tea?
Like 5:30.
Yeah.
Which was a meal,
Yeah.
but that's what they called it. Yeah.
Tea.
Tea. Yeah. Never dinner. Dinner. Yeah. Dinner was lunch. So we didn't use the word lunch.
Yeah.
Breakfast, dinner, and tea. That's what it was.
But to your point, I'm always trying to see how I can provide more value.
So something I've been thinking about a lot in business and talking to my team about is that, in business, there's a lot of talking, right? So there's a lot of buttering people up. There's a lot of chit chat. And I always tell my team, you can be the sweetest person in the world, but if you don't do something,
Yeah, you got to
right?
deliver.
Actions speak louder than words, right? Like clients aren't paying you to be their friend. They already got their friends, right? So be friendly, but they're not paying you to be their friend. They're paying you to do a great job and take care of them, right? And that for a real estate agent, what do you want? You want to be able to trust your agent. You want them to deliver for you, and you want them to treat you properly. That's it, and vice versa.
Yeah. It's I want to be treated the same way too.
Yeah.
I'm a business professional. We're in a business relationship. We're going to be respectful of each other, and we're not going to yell and scream and whatever and play down on each other. We're in this together.
Yeah.
And that's just how it has to go. And
I saw this guy yesterday at Tim Hortons.
Yeah.
I took my kids to Tim Hortons after dinner last night, and he didn't get his coffee. And he was such a jackass. Like, he was mocking the staff to everybody in line. And he thought he was right because they forgot his coffee. They just forgot. Like, people forget. And I was like,
People are human.
listen, man, why are you doing this to those people? Yeah, I get it's frustrating. You want your coffee. How about you pull one on the side and say, hey, guys, you forgot my coffee. Can I get it?
Yeah.
You're announcing to the whole restaurant that they're not doing their job. You can see that they're running around like with chickens with their heads cut off. And that's the same thing. He paid for the coffee, so he thinks that gives him the ticket to be a dick. Yeah. And it doesn't. It really doesn't. You got to meet people where they're at. And if people are having I remember one time I was in that one. It is a bit of a mess. The Mill Cove Tim Hortons is a bit of a mess. One time I was in there, and this kid was struggling, man. Like, he was struggling to hold it together with all the drive-through orders and the in-person orders.
There's nobody busier than Tim Hortons.
Jeez, and he's a kid, right? Like,
you can only expect so much.
20 at most,
Yeah.
and he's cursing, like, he's freaking out, right? And so everybody's getting frustrated. Not one person leaned over to the guy and like, "You okay, buddy? Like, it's okay, it's okay." Not one person. It's like, we gotta break through this barrier that we have where it's like us and them. To me, it's not helpful.
Yeah, I agree too, man. Just like I won't name who, but like I've had a couple family members in the past, like just not like over the top, but like, well, maybe one guy was a little over the top, but it's back to that, just because you're buying something and it's not delivered to you exactly in the picture perfect way it's supposed to, it doesn't entitle you to just be able to degrade or talk down to whoever. And a lot of times too, it happens, I find, like restaurants. Say you order something, order comes back, waitress or waiter puts it on the table, it's not what you want. Screaming at that waitress or waiter isn't going to change it.
Absolutely
Number
not.
one.
Yeah.
Number two, it's going to make them feel terrible. And number three, they're the waiter. They could have very well told exactly to the kitchen what you want to a T.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Somebody just made a mistake.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Like, you'd have to serve me something raw.
Yeah, yeah. Or like at the finest dining restaurant in the world. Like, there's expectations, but you're at Tim Hortons or you're at Charger Burger or something where you're paying like $15 or something, and you expect the Ritz service. Let's just chill out a little bit, guys.
Just
like,
relax.
Just relax a little bit.
I'm not here to ruin anybody else's day.
And that's what people do. You think that that's just water off a 20-year-old's back? No, it's not. They go home and it sucks for them. They had a shitty day because of it.
Think about that for a long time.
You've ruined their day. And maybe they learned something from it, check their work, blah, blah, blah. You can do that in a way that's not going to ruin someone's day.
Guess what? I've been late for showings. I forgot that we had a pre-inspection walkthrough or a pre-closing walkthrough. Like, I made it, but I was a little late.
Yeah.
Things happen. You thought you put it in your calendar and you didn't press save and it's still sitting open on your desktop or whatever. It's just like, Yeah, and especially lately, I find it's even worse. Like with the inflation
Yeah.
and the housing issue and the homelessness and there's just like everybody's just so like,
Try going up to Toronto,
oh,
which I'm doing on Friday. But yeah, for sure there is
everybody's just on edge, man.
there's a tension. Yeah,
You can feel it.
You can feel it.
You see it on the road.
Yeah, yeah,
Everybody like,
Yeah.
some gal's trying to get in behind me. I don't even see her because she's in my blind spot. There's traffic everywhere. Next thing I look and she's just like, rah,
Yeah.
just losing her mind.
know,
And I
know.
mean, don't get me wrong. Like you cut me off, I'm probably not going to be super happy about it either, especially if it was like almost an accident.
Yeah,
And like, I'm not perfect either. Like I can definitely, we can all lose our temper, control
for
a little
sure.
bit, but for the most part, man, I just try and like, you mess that up, totally fine. Or like Tim Hortons worker, oh, so sorry for the wait. It's like, listen, I got plenty of time. Relax.
you'll like this. I compare this to youth sports. So my son's in competitive basketball, and we spend a lot of time at the courts and whatnot.
Yeah, I got no hops.
He's 12 and he's almost 5'10".
Yeah, I've been 5'6" since
Yeah,
grade
he's
7.
only he's
Ben.
got size 9 men's feet. He's only 12.
Wow.
So anyway, last year I coached. I didn't want to do that anymore, so I just watched this year. And you watch the boys and you watch how they behave. And it's not about winning and losing. It's not about skill. It's not about any of that stuff. It's about their character, right? So, and often, Chris, I see a correlation between extreme skill and bad attitude.
Yeah, they
at
often have
this
them.
age,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So we've got, I won't get into it, but over the years, I've
Right.
seen a few star players act like little jerks. And we had a situation last weekend where one of our players lashed out at the other team physically, threw an elbow from the ground. And I was mortified. I was so embarrassed. And but my point is that most of the players, we see a lot of players with the opposing team. I would say 98% of the players play hard, play fair, help one another up, check on one another when someone goes down, because people do go down in basketball, believe it or not. The overall impression is very, very good. The kids have the right mindset. They're compassionate. They approach the game in the right way. You get one or two. You get one or two that can't lose. They don't play as a team, and all they care about is scoring their own buckets. You meet those one or two people in the world. Most people aren't like that. And that's what I find in my work. You'll come across the odd person, work in life, you'll come across the odd person whose intentions aren't correct. And as a almost 45-year-old man who's raised 4 children, I want nothing to do with those people.
Yeah.
You see it on the mats. Very rarely. Once in a while, you'll come across a dick.
Yeah.
And what do? You
beat the shit out of him.
Well,
Just kidding.
maybe you do. I stay away from him.
Yeah.
There was a guy that came in this week. He's not a dick, but he's very rough. He comes in once in a while. He's very rough. I'm not rolling with that guy, right? And it's not that he's a dick. I don't know him, but he's very, very rough and very intense. And like, I'm not there for that. And so going through life, you learn as you get older, and you'll see this as you get further and further into your practice. You'll get less and less of those people. You'll slowly start erasing them from your client list.
Because you attract who you want.
You attract. And within, like, I'm 15 years in now. Most of our clients, the vast majority, are amazing. And the ones that aren't, we finish the work and I don't follow up.
Yeah.
And if they come back, I price their work really high.
Right.
And that's just the natural selection. And so my point is just thus, that I think that most people have the right intentions. They can get stressed out. They can get bothered. Like you say, get cut off in traffic, whatever. And that's what I care about. I'm looking for people whose intentions are good, who want to do the right thing, and maybe they don't every time, but they want to, and that's all that really counts. And I do that with my employees and my friends, and I try and explain these things to my family. And you know what? It makes life a lot more pleasant, that's for sure.
Yeah, man, I tell you, I've been on a big journey in the last, pandemic. I usually kind of use that as a benchmark because we all had too much time on our hands and in our heads. And, I had to call, I had some relationships just wasn't doing me any good. And, sometimes, like, I feel like some people, like, keep people around just because they've been around,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I do.
We've
talked about this.
Right?
Yeah.
I've known this person for 10 years.
Yeah.
I have to keep him in the stable.
Yeah.
No, you don't.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
Does it hurt to let go? Sure, because you probably had some great memories.
Yeah.
But like for me, if you're not providing what I feel is the equitable value of like this reciprocal kind of relationship that we're in, or mistreating me or taking advantage, then, you know, I don't take advantage of people. At least, you know, hey, if somebody wants to call bullshit and call me out on it and tell me, no, you took advantage of me, here, yeah, please give me a call and we'll sort it out. But like, I'm here to help because I'm a giver. Like,
Yeah,
if you need me to help you shovel your driveway because we had all this snow and your snowblower broke down, if I have the capacity to do that, I'll show up and help.
Yeah.
I'm the guy. And I mean, for better or for worse, some people say maybe it's, you know, you don't want to always be that guy, but like, if somebody needs help, I always say, you just got to call. And if I can help, I'll come. And I find like if, you know, a lot of times I'll give, and I don't expect immediate reciprocation. You know, I don't keep tabs. I don't have a ledger how many times I help Ben, you know, train jiu-jitsu or this, that, or the other thing. But there comes a time like, maybe you can't help me the first time I ask because you're busy. And maybe the second time there's another legitimate concern. But if we get past like the third time and you're always asking me, I used to be the truck guy too. I sold my truck when I got into real estate because it's just uncertainty, high bills, whatever, trying to, you know, streamline things a bit better. It's like, oh, well, can you get my wife this elliptical? Can you help me move this stuff to the dump? Can you bring this to help me bring these bottles to the recycle depot? Can you help me move? And, you know, I'd be perfectly happy to do it. But as the years and the days pass by, you ask for help, nobody shows up.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, sometimes you have to have a real hard look at, you know, your relationships and what kind of value they provide. And sometimes you got to make cuts.
And I'd also, just to challenge you there a little bit, Chris, is I think also it's important for us to acknowledge that people go through different phases of their life.
Yeah,
right.
definitely.
So, you know, you got buddies that have small children. Yeah, it's going to be harder for them as much as they might want to. You know, maybe people are dealing with a sick family member. Like, I try and give people the benefit of the doubt, but you're right. If it's just take,
I'm not saying all the cuts I did were good.
Right.
You know, some of them were maybe a little emotionally driven at some points.
Yeah.
And I'm a big, like, once it's kind of done, I kind of just like, you know, some people are like, well, you could kind of maybe make some reparations. And I'm like,
Yeah.
Some people like, maybe I could. Then some people it's like, well, for what? To just get back to where we were. And then we're just back at the same.
Right.
So, but yeah, no, I mean, you got to take in consideration everybody's going through different stuff. And I think the more you talk to people, at least from my perspective, is what people don't understand is like somebody's probably going through the same shit.
I was thinking on the way up here, the one thing that's really helped me in the last couple years is to realize that every single one of us is going through some shit.
A lot of times.
Every single one of us, right? Personal shit, relationship shit, family shit, work shit. Mental shit, sexual shit. Like, people are going through stuff. They're always going through stuff, and so
I think we forget that.
We do forget that because we don't really show that when we're out in the world, right? But
we put a mask on.
Somebody's always dealing with some money issues. There's always an issue, and I think that we have to just try and remember that. Try and be kind to one another, but also, like you say, don't be a pushover. Don't be taken advantage of.
Yeah.
And as you get older, you kind of know. You know who's like that, but like I said, I think it's much less. People generally are good. They're just dealing with their own shit. That's all.
They're dealing with their own shit.
Yeah.
So lots to think about. Good chats. So for you with a good intent, like I know you guys kind of do a full service.
Yeah.
Kind of bit. Like, is there any one section of the business that really calls more to you, or do you kind of love it all?
Well, for me, you know, I'm the president, so I don't work directly on the work so much anymore. I'm more you're getting the work. I have to get the work and then run the business and make sure the team have what they need and make sure that they're led properly and they're resourced properly. But for us, it's our favorite work is the work where we feel we can make an impact. We can help a client not just on a transactional level, back to that word, right? Not just here, I've got a project, do it. It's more of a relationship where we work together all the time, and we can actually have an impact on the organization and the way that they impact their community. So that's our favorite work. And as you get more mature and you get more established, that work presents itself more regularly. So we're big into healthcare. We're big into community work, and that type of work, sort of how we can contribute somewhat to some of the large challenges that we face as a society today.
Yeah, get those messages.
Help people understand. You'll love this one. So I had a client come to me this week, and they're developing a tool that is designed to counter misinformation on the internet.
Okay.
Which is really interesting, because there's obviously a lot of it. And when they explained it further, it really opened my eyes. And their tool enables people to understand the difference between emotional language and factual language. And so it tests you. It gives you statements. Is this a factual statement? Is this an emotional statement? And sometimes it's just one word. Sometimes it's just one word in a sentence that changes it from factual to emotional. And that to me is really an interesting project, because I think that we all fall victim to emotion on the internet and sensational headlines and finger pointing. I mean, man. Look at this week. Our premier goes after the mayor, the CBRM, because they want people off the roads. I mean, it's just, and that was emotional, right? Like, that's not factual. He had some factual elements in there, but he wraps it all up with emotion to get headlines and get attention and get eyeballs, and then people start repeating it. And that's the kind of stuff to me that's really interesting, as well as helping healthcare and public health figure out these problems that we have, because we have major structural and systematic problems with the way that we deliver healthcare in this country, that are being actively worked on, as much as the media might lead you to believe that they're not. Yeah. They most certainly are.
You can't believe everything you read on the internet.
Yeah, you pretty much can't believe any of it.
I don't think you can believe much of anything that's been put out there lately. I mean, I'm a bit pessimistic in that sense, but...
Well, you have to look at it. I mean, like, if you're doing the work, if you're, let's say, like, one of our main clients is the Canadian Partnership Against Cancer, and so their job is to assess how we control cancer in this country. So a mixture of treatment delivery, prevention, methodology, geographical differences. The list goes on and on and on. Do you think they're in the news talking about healthcare? No, they're not. They're too busy working. They're working to make change in the system. They're working to make sure that every young woman in this country has access to the HPV vaccine, which by 2030 will eliminate cervical cancer in Canada. Anybody talking about that? Not really. That doesn't grab clicks. That doesn't sell ad revenue. So
it's not mainstream, yeah.
Well, cervical cancer is pretty bloody mainstream.
No. I mean,
and HPV vaccines are offered in the school. So this is something that parents are thinking about. Like, when my oldest daughter was 10, it was new, and we didn't let her get it because it was new.
Right.
Well, now fast forward, my younger daughter, who's 13 now, absolutely she's going to get it. Yeah. Absolutely she's going to get it, because now the science and the data is out there. That stuff is real. It's happening. And by 2030, this country won't have cervical cancer anymore. That's incredible. Cervical cancer kills people, Chris. It kills people every single day. Yeah. We won't have it. It will be gone. That's the kind of shit that's happening in Canada that nobody wants to talk about, because it doesn't sell ad revenue, right? What sells ad revenue is get mad at Justin Trudeau, get mad at Tim Houston, get mad at Mike Savage, because they're not doing X, Y, and Z. Well, since when did the Prime Minister implement system change within our provincial-run healthcare system? It doesn't make any sense. But what it does do is it gets people angry, and it gets eyeballs, and it makes money for the news outlets and the social media channels, and that's fine. That's the world we live in. That's fine. But I, as a person that works within these systems, I get a little skeptical of it all, and I worry about it, because there's a lot of people out there that are angry at the wrong thing. And I'm no fan of our Prime Minister. Let's not go down that rabbit hole. I am a liberal, but I'm not a fan of the current government so much. But people conflate issues with what the federal party does. They think that they control everything. They think they're like the grand overlord of every single element. Well, it's not true.
There's a lot of other
They're basically a bank. They're basically a bank. They basically fund the provinces, and the provinces do the things. But they're an easy scapegoat. So you have to really be careful with this stuff, and I do worry about it, and I do worry about my kids, but I think there's also a growing skepticism, and people are sort of switching off and and trying to figure it out. And I'm a big fan of journalism. Journalism is a vital component of our democratic system. The problem is most of our journalism is garbage.
It is. At least it's been garbage.
Because it's ad driven.
Right.
That's the only, because it's so hard to make money in journalism today. The best type of journalism in Canada isn't done very often. If you go down to the States and you read The Atlantic or you read some of the major news publications, the Washington Post, that's real journalism, you know, where an article goes on for 25 pages. Right. That's the shit you should be reading. That journalist has been working on that for years. They've got all the sources. They've got all the data. They're presenting true representations of an interesting situation. Most of us aren't. We're not going to see that when we click on a headline on Facebook. It's not even the same thing. It's not the same thing whatsoever. It's a way of selling ads versus hard-hitting journalism that shines a spotlight on corruption, shines a spotlight on the healthcare system, those types of things. 300 words on the CTV website, that's not journalism. That's reporting. It's different.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to like what I kind of mentioned is like, I feel like they might have moved more to like, well, we got to make money. It's all transactional instead of like the value added news that, you know, should be reporting.
But then there's a lot of people in this country that want to cut funding to journalism. So that makes it even worse.
Right.
And so I know that CBC is very controversial, but watch the National and then watch the CTV 11 o'clock broadcast and you tell me which is a better level of journalism. It's a different division. It's like the English Premier League versus the amateur league.
Yeah.
It's completely different. And the difference is CBC's funded. They don't have to sell revenue. They don't have to tailor their news to keep their sponsors happy. Right? And some people would say they do it to keep their main sponsor happy, which is the Liberal government. Liberal government doesn't sponsor CBC. The country of Canada does. It's more friendly to Liberal government. Let's not kid ourselves.
Yeah.
But that's my point. In England, you have the BBC, and then in the States, you have these institutions. And I think that that's really important for us. And I think that social media has made us lose the value of that. Remember when you were a kid and your parents got the papers on the weekend? And
oh, yeah.
Right? And spent the morning reading the papers. Nobody does that anymore.
I remember plain as day. We were young in the old house. Dad come home from fishing. He'd eat supper. Then he had this thing. He'd get the paper and he'd lay down on the living room floor.
Yeah, I can picture it.
And read and watch the news at the same time.
Yeah.
After dinner.
Yeah, I can picture it. Yeah.
You know, he might have had a drink or a beer or whatever, and okay. And
he'd probably read it cover to cover too.
Oh, the whole thing.
Yeah. Nobody does that anymore.
Classifieds.
Now we cherry pick the news that aligns to our viewpoint. That's what we all do. Me too. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I'm a liberal. Like I read the CBC. I don't go down the right wing news channels, and vice versa. And I'm aware of that, right? But as long as we're aware of it, that's what counts. If we skew more right and we read more right wing stuff, that's fine. As long as you're aware that that's only one side of the argument. Much like when I read the CBC, I know it's slanting left. I know that, and I'm aware of that. But people are like, this is real, and that's fake. That's not true. They're both real. They're just presented from a different viewpoint.
100%.
And that, I think, back to connection, that's my concern, especially what's happening down south next year. Well, this year, I guess, at the end of this year, is that we're moving further apart when we should be moving further together.
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it, and I think I'm a little pressed for time, so
absolutely.
We'll wrap it up there. But I think you're 100% right. I think instead of growing more close as a community and growing together, we're divided.
Yeah.
We're more than ever, really.
And my concern is that it's deliberate.
Yeah.
And that's a shame.
That is a shame.
Because we should come together, you know? Like, I just one more anecdote. There's a new development. I'm sure you've seen it, the Bedford Commons development, right?
Yeah.
So the news release. So, of course, the community groups are all a Twitter with old people complaining.
Oh, yeah. Well, it can't be any change.
I know. No change.
Can't be any
to
change.
Which actually one person said, what happened to the Bedford of my youth? And I said, I commented, the only constant in life is change. It's the only thing that remains the same is that things change. But another comment was, well, where are all these people coming from? And it's like, come on, you know where they're coming from.
Yeah.
And have you
open your eyes
and open your heart and talk to somebody or hire somebody from another country and tell me if you still have a problem with them? Because I've had people through my house who moved here from Turkey or you go to a restaurant and they came to this country, open a goddamn restaurant with all of their savings and are serving up food. Those people are amazing people. Why are we so angry at them? I don't understand it.
Yeah. And I mean, I get that. Yeah. To your point, like, we should be praising that. Whereas, like, now we have a pile or handful of people or a demographic of people that they won't do stuff like that.
That's right.
You know?
Well, who's going to do it?
You know,
England
immigrants
saw it,
come
Chris.
here. There are 5 or 6 people living in an apartment, working 3 jobs,
right.
freaking 80 hours a week,
Serving us our coffee.
just to
right?
just to come here because they were told this was a good place to
Yeah.
be, opportunity.
Yeah.
Mind you, we've kind of shortchanging them on some of that.
Some of that, yeah.
But
But nothing's perfect.
you know, and that's that whole immigrant mentality. Like, they've come from nothing. What is
Yeah.
it? What is the difference to them if they put all their? They probably put all their eggs in one
That's right.
basket.
That's right.
Every place they've
That's
went,
right. That's right.
leaving the where they
That's
grew
right.
up.
The people
They
that
got
we
nothing
had,
to lose.
we had painters through. They're from Turkey, and in Turkey, he was like a sports scientist, and she was a professional. They come here. None of their credentials are recognized. They can't work in their field. They speak perfect English. So what do? They start a business providing excellent painting services for Canadians. They're amazing people. Of course, we want those people here. But you have this set of people that just don't want change, and that's fine. That's just the way people are. But
And they're taking all their jobs.
I
It's like, well, you don't want them.
you're retired,
Right.
You're, like most of these people are retired. It's like, listen, like it's okay, right? That's if we don't have immigrants, then we don't have a tax base because all the old people are dying, and
Right.
there's not enough kids being born.
We gotta
so
replace.
we got to replace
Yeah,
it. And yeah,
where's it
maybe
coming from?
there's a lot of infrastructure problems, but that's not their fault.
Yeah, it's growing pains,
It's
right?
growing pains is exactly
Growing
what it is.
pains.
And you need 6,000 unit developments in Bedford, right? That's what you need. That's
need it.
That's where the people are going to live.
We've been behind on that for years. We just didn't have
40 years.
And we just it took us a little 2-year boom
Yeah.
to figure out. Oh, we got to start really putting the gas pedal down on these issues.
One thing I will say before we close. When I moved to Canada, I was surprised at how much Canadians complained. This was something that really shocked me.
Yeah,
Even back then, when Canada was pretty dreamy, Canadians would complain. Complain. And it bothered me. But I came to realize within about 3 or 4 years, the reason why Canada is such an amazing place to live and consistently scores as the best place in the world to live on international indexes is because we complain.
really.
Well, that's
For
why shit
change.
changes. That's why things improve.
Right.
If we didn't
I wasn't sure where you're going with
if
this.
we didn't go berserk about the healthcare system in Nova Scotia, Tim Houston, 1, wouldn't have got in, and 2, wouldn't have made all the changes that government has already made to improve the system, which it is improving, because we were mad. In other countries, you get mad, either no one listens or they suppress you.
Right.
Right? So it took me a while to get used to it because I'm like, I don't understand what they're complaining about. But I think there's a culture of active dialogue in this country, which comes across as complaining, that keeps people accountable and makes positive change.
Yeah, and we need it.
We always need it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. Good place to end on. I want to thank you for coming on, and if I've learned anything from this chat is I think everybody could handle getting out in the world with a little bit of good intent.
Thank you. That's right.
All right.
It's all about intentions.
So thanks again for
Thanks,
coming.
Chris.
You have a great day.
Thank you.
And I'd be glad to have you on another time.
Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Thank you.